Hi everybody, Malice here again with the final Death Guard Detachment review video of our little mini-series reviewing the Death Guard Codex. And it's the turn of the Tallyband Summoners. Now, I did cover these in a bit of depth when Games Workshop were doing the previews on Warhammer during the Death Guard Codex, because this was a detachment they pretty much featured heavily in those previews. But that was when we had somewhat limited information about what was available to them. Now we have everything, so let's give it a full review. So we'll start, as always, first off with the detachment rule, and that is Reverberant Rancidity. Whilst a Plague Legions unit within your army is within 7 of one or more Death Guard units from your army, that Plague Legions unit has the Nurgle's gift ability. See the Death Guard army will, which we'll go over in the overview video that will be coming down the line. Whilst the Death Guard unit from your army is within 7 of one or more Plague Legion units, add 3 inches to that Death Guard unit's contagion range. So the detachment will, despite this being the demon heavy side of the Death Guard Codex, it's still wanting you to run a bit of a combined arms force, one benefiting the other and vice versa. Also, to add Plague Legions, you can include Plague Legions units in your army even though they do not have a Death Guard faction keyword. The combined cost of such units you can include in your army is, so in incursion games, up to 500 points. Strike Force up to 1000, Onslaught up to 1500. No Plague Legion units from your army can be your Warlord. So that's an important detail. Depending on the size of the game, depends on how many points you can actually spend on the demons within the detachment. So let's move into the enhancements. Beckoning Blight and Death Guard model only. Each time a Plague Legions unit from your army is set up on the battlefield using the Deep Strike ability, if it is set up wholly within 12 inches of the bearer, it can be set up anywhere that is more than 6 inches horizontally away from all enemy models instead of more than 9. Bit wordy, but basically you can kind of deployment shenanigans this to get a deep strike unit in a little bit closer to the enemy than you ordinarily would be able to. Not bad. Bit situational and it's a bit deployment shenanigan for my personal tastes. This next one is a bit simpler and pretty damn solid in its own right, and that is the Fell Harvester. Death Guard model only, add 2 to the attacks characteristic of the bearer's melee weapons. Simple, uncomplicated and perfectly solid. We like it. More attacks on any weapon, be it ranged or melee. You don't kick that out of bed for farting. Very solid enhancement, that one. Next up is the Entropic Knell for the Great Unclean Ones. In the Battle Shock step, each of your opponent's command phase, each enemy unit within 6 of a bearer that is below its starting strength must take a Battle Shock test subtracting 1 from the test. This is situational depending on who you're against, because some factions will just laugh at it and it will affect some quite badly. It's okay, but a lot of it is knowing who you're going to be what factions you're going to be playing against most regularly to get the best bang from your buck out of this. Finally, we have the Tome of Bounteous Blessings. Another one for the Malignant Plaguecaster. Each time a Plague Legions unit within 12 of a bearer takes a Battle Shock test, I'd want about test, and if the test is passed, one model in that unit regains up to D3 lost wounds. If that unit is a battle line unit and that test is passed, up to D3 destroyed models can be returned to that unit instead. This is pretty decent. It's a way to heal your demon units, or in the case of something like plague bearers, actually bring some of them back. We like it. Personally, I think that the Tome of Bounty's Blessings is my silver medal out of the enhancements for this detachment. Gold will go to the Fell Harvester. Yes, it's the simplest. Yes, it's not very complicated. But 2 extra attacks on a melee weapon, you're not going to turn that down. And so Beckham Blight, I'd give that the bronze, but purely because it's a bit less situational in my eyes than the Entropic Knell. Beckham Blight just requires you to be just requires good deployment shenanigan knowledge in effect. But let's move on to the stratagems for the Tallyband Summoners. Now, as usual, unless I specify otherwise, they cost 1 command point. And we'll start with Persistent Pests. You can use it in any phase you like. On an Nurglin's unit from your army that was just destroyed, you can target that unit with this stratagem even though it was just destroyed. Add a new unit to your army identical to your destroyed unit and strategic reserves at starting strength, 4 wins remaining. So it's an annoyance factor. Your opponent wipes out a unit of Nurglings, which are pretty much just there to eat bullets or blades for juicier targets. You can pop this, you can bring that unit back again. Very Nurgling-like, very annoying, solid, you like it. Clutching Corruption is next. Use it in the fight phase on a Death Guard unit from your army that has not been selected to fight this phase. Until the end of the phase, each time a model in your unit makes an attack that targets an enemy unit that is within engagement range of one or more Plague Legion units from your army, you can reroll the hit roll. Again, leaning heavily into the combined arms approach of Plague-ridden Astartes and Demons. You have a Demon unit nearby, or Plague Legion unit I should say nearby. You gotta reroll your hit rolls. It's solid enough, you can't complain about it. All is Rot is up next in your shooting phase. Use it on a Plague Legions unit from your army that is within engagement range of one or more enemy units. Until the end of the phase, enemy units are not considered to be within engagement range of your unit for the purposes of selecting targets for ranged weapons. Until the end of the phase, each time an enemy model loses a wound, whilst that model's unit is within engagement range of your unit, roll 1d6. On a 5+, your unit suffers 1 mortal wound after the attacking unit has finished making its attacks. So you can essentially say, for example, take your unit of Plague Bearers. They're close to an enemy unit you'd like to whittle down. Essentially, it means you can shoot into their combat, and yes, there's a 1 in 3 chance of accidentally killing one of your Plague Bearers, but that's a chance you'll take, isn't it? It's solid enough. It's not bad at all. Not bad at all. Next up we have Fleshy Avalanche. Use it in your movement phase or your charge phase on a Plague Legion's monster unit from your army that has not been selected to move or charge this phase. Until the end of the phase, each time your unit makes a normal, advance or charge move, it can move horizontally through terrain features. So your big bad demony monster can just move through terrain. you like that. So always solid, means it can get to that unit that's hiding behind the terrain feature wanting to avoid it for whatever reason. You like it. You like that one a lot. Avatars of Decay is up next. Use it in your shooting phase on a Plague Legion unit from your army. Until the end of the phase, whilst the enemy unit is within 6 of your unit, that enemy unit is afflicted. Simple, uncomplicated, to the point, whack afflicted on a unit. We definitely like this one. And that seemed to be the story with the stratagems for the Tallyband Summoners. None of them are particularly stand out and seize the day heroic, but they're all solid. They all have the places. They all have their niches and uses. I think that's the winning theme of this one. It's just combined arms solid. And we finally end the stratagems with Slick. Use it in your opponent's movement phase when an enemy unit, excluding monsters and vehicles, is selected to fall back. Use it on a Plague Legion unit from your army that is within engagement range of that enemy unit. Until the end of the phase, whilst the enemy unit is within engagement range of your unit, each time that unit is selected to fall back, it must take a leadership test. If that test is failed, that unit must remain stationary this phase instead. This is the only one of the stratagems so far that I'd say is very situational. It's a bit like the Entropic Canal. Its effectiveness is largely going to depend on what faction your opponent will be playing. Because there'll be some out there that'll just laugh at having to take a leadership test. There'll be some that don't want to take the leadership test at all. So, yeah, I'd say Slick is the only one of the 6 stratagems that I'd say is quite specialised and niche, depending who you're playing. And it falls into the same bracket as the Entropic Knell for that reason. If some factions, both will work absolutely brilliantly. Against others, it might once in a while, and then you have those where it's just pointless. And that wraps up everything about the Tallyband Summoners. Now, out of all 6 detachments, this would probably be my bronze medal one. I like the combined arms approach. The Plague Astartes benefiting the demons and vice versa. I like the fact that in a lot of cases things are steady Eddie solid choices. With maybe one very niche enhancement and also one quite niche stratagem. But overall, I quite like the Tallyband Summoners. A very solid detachment. Definitely one I think will shine in bigger games, like standard Strike Force and Onslaught upwards, because it means you can bring things like the bigger and better demons into play, like say the Great Unclean one, for example. Because yes, you can bring a Great Unclean one if you want to an incursion game, but you're not going to have a whole lot of points on other demons to spend. But so I definitely think this is a detachment. This is the detachment within the Death Guard that actually will benefit from playing in bigger games. Onslaught games, I think the combined arms nature of this detachment will let it shine. But again, that's just my thoughts on it. More important is what you guys think. As always, let me know in the comments, and until the next video, I shall see you next time. Bye.